Once again, there is a new UFC champion. Tyron Woodley shocks Robbie Lawler to take the welterweight title, and Kowalkiewicz knocks off Namajunas. I got all the results. First bout of the day saw Damian Brown kick off the UFC Fight Pass prelims with a crushing victory of Cesar Arzamendia. Damian Brown's a mean dude. I mean, he is a mean dude. He pursued this KO with reckless abandon. Dropped Arzamendia a total of twice in that first round before securing the stoppage victory. It was just a savage assault. I mean, you hate to keep dropping the S word, but it was savage. It really was. And he just plowed through Arzamendia. I mean, the fight was over in the 2.5 minutes, so it's hard to even give much of an assessment of Arzamendia. But Damian Brown is definitely a vicious finisher who is probably prone to be a crowd pleaser for as long as he's in the UFC. The next fight, which was the only other fight on the UFC Fight Pass prelims, Michael Graves had to settle for a draw with Velickovic, even though most people kind of thought that Graves might have won the fight. It was a very odd and difficult fight to score. If you look at it, the first round, Velickovic appeared to win that round fairly easily. He outstruck him from significant strikes 10-6. It was uneventful, and he outstruck him 22-7 in total strikes. There were no knockdowns, no takedowns. So, you kind of make of that what it is. You lean towards Velickovic for that round. Second round was absolutely Michael Graves. He had 2 takedowns. There wasn't a lot of striking because Graves took him down early and maintained control for almost the entire first round, 4 minutes and 38 seconds to be exact. So clearly, it seems the fight was 1-1 at the end of the 2 rounds. In the third round, this was tough, and I think Velickovic got the edge because, again, he did have the advantage in strikes, 26-3, 6 significant strikes to 0. But they both had the 1 takedown, and Michael Graves had top control in that last round for 2 minutes and 18 seconds, and Velickovic didn't really have control at all. And the strikes that he landed, even though he did outstrike Graves, they weren't significant shots that did any real damage. You would have thought that the prevailing aspect of this fight, of this round, would have been Graves and his top control. Velickovic did get the takedown, as I mentioned, but I would say, 10 seconds after he got the takedown, Graves got to his feet and then subsequently took Velickovic down and stayed in top position most of that round. So it looked like a fight, looked like a round that Graves would have won and then in turn won the fight. But it was ruled a draw. One judge did give it 30-28 for Graves, which would have been understandable, which would have been the first round even. He gets the second round and the third. But the other 2 judges saw it as even, 28-28, so we had a majority draw. It's kind of weird. The next fight, which was the first one on the Fox Sports 2 prelims, Wilson Reyes taking on Hector Sandoval. Now, Wilson Reyes was supposed to take on Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson for the UFC Flyweight Championship in the co-main event, but as everybody knows, Demetrius Johnson was injured, had to be pulled out. Hector Sandoval was the late replacement, and he didn't work long. He didn't work long at all. How about 1 minute and 59 seconds? Wilson Reyes secures the fastest submission victory in UFC flyweight history by rear naked choke. 3 takedowns, pure domination, and yeah, dude looks like he should. If anybody was wondering how in the world did this guy get a title shot, well, he was impressive in this fight. So we'll see what's next for him. It looks like Mighty Mouse is probably going to be taking on the winner of the next season of Ultimate Fighter, which is designed to create a #1 contender or a guy to get a title shot. So Reyes may have to wait after that, and so we don't know what he's going to do in between time. We'll see. In the next fight on the UFC fight, on the prelims for the Fox Sports 2 broadcast, we saw Anthony Hamilton, not the R&B singer, even though that would have been pretty interesting. He's one of my favorite singers. Anthony Hamilton, that's my dog. But no, not that one. Taking on Damian Grabowski, and the big Grabowski got the big beat down in this particular fight. Anthony Hamilton knocks him out with just a savage finish. He came banging Grabowski. Just, I mean, you heard him once. Grabowski went into the cage. Hamilton would not let up. He was throwing bombs. You know, these are heavyweights, so the guys don't throw anything much less than bombs. And he completely overcame Grabowski, and referee had to step in to stop the fight. It was a win that Anthony Hamilton needed because he had some opportunities to step up in his level of competition, and he failed those tests. So this was a big win for him to get and try to get himself somewhat on the radar in the heavyweight division in the UFC. I actually thought this next fight might have an opportunity to be the fight of the night, but it turned out to be one of the more lopsided fights of the night, at least of the ones that went the decision. Jorge Masvidal against Ross Pearson. Both of these guys are warriors who have been in a good number of wars. But it's clear, well, it seemed clear to me, Ross Pearson has seemingly, maybe he's been in a few too many, because he just did not look anywhere near as sharp as he normally does. And I'm not taking anything away from Jorge Masvidal. I've always felt that he was one of the more underrated fighters in the UFC or in mixed martial arts altogether, because he consistently fights top competition very well. He loses a lot of close decisions. I think the only issue I've always had with him is that he does everything well but nothing spectacular. And I think that's one of the things that held him back. Well, it didn't hold him back at all against Ross Pearson. He beat him up literally for 3 rounds. And I don't even know how you could have judged or scored this fight anything less than, 30-26, 30-25 maybe. It was just that dominant. Ross Pearson hasn't been beaten this soundly in I don't know how long. So big time win for Masvidal. He might have been fighting for his spot in the UFC. So he comes up with the victory, and it was extremely one-sided. The next fight featured, I'm just letting you guys know, if you didn't catch the drift already, there was a lot of finishes. Nikita Krylov destroys Ed Herman in the second round, actually. Nikita Krylov is a very exciting fighter. I believe he's won 5 or 6 fights in a row, all of them by stoppage. This guy is always looking for the stoppage. His defense leaves a little bit to be desired, but he is an offensive fighter, whether or not he's looking for the finish on stand-up or on the ground. When he first came up, he was a heavyweight and he was a little flabby, but he was known primarily for his submissions. Now, this guy has trimmed down. He's a light heavyweight, and he looks even more dangerous. He's absolutely a crowd-pleasing type of fighter. Short fuse Ed Herman's not a great fighter at all. So, I mean, he's not a horrible fighter, but he's definitely not elite. So this is a fight you would think Krylov should win, and that's exactly what he did. He went for a spinning back fist and a right hand, but then he ended up getting caught with a combination. But a half a second after the combination lands, he hits Ed Herman with a nasty head kick that knocks him out. He crumples down to the mat, and Krylov gets to stop his victory. The dude is, like I said, this guy is exciting. So if you haven't got an opportunity to see him fight, you probably going to want to do that. Next fight, Ryan Benois against Freddie Serrano. My personal opinion, I felt this fight probably should have been the fight of the night. It was a split decision victory for Benoit, and these dudes felt like they didn't like each other for the entire fight. I mean, there was some vicious slams by Serrano. One of them looked a lot like the John Cena attitude adjustment. It was pretty nasty. That was in the first round. But Benoit got the edge, and he gets the victory here, and I was a little bit bewildered. And I'm going to tell you, so the first round, you get 2 takedowns by Serrano. The significant strikes were pretty much even, right? Serrano had more top control, so I really didn't get it. Benoit did not have any takedowns. Second round, same thing. Serrano gets 2 more takedowns, has 8 significant strikes to 6, 30 overall strikes over Benoit. So I don't know how Serrano didn't win the first 2 rounds. You could almost, you couldn't really, I don't think you can make the case that he wins the last round. I think Benoit wins the last round with a far more significant strikes than Serrano, 14-2, even though Serrano did get his 5th takedown in that round. But even giving Benoit this round, I still felt that Serrano was supposed to win 2-1, but that's not what happened. So it was a very entertaining scrap. Most of the fights on the card were not that competitive. This was probably one of 2 or 3 that were competitive, and I thought that should have been fight of the night probably. I also thought Serrano should have won, so I didn't get anything I thought. Next fight, Francisco Rivera against Eric Perez. Perez came, to the cage or to the octagon with his luchador mask on, which I always think is pretty cool. And I think he outfought Rivera. Rivera's a one-trick pony. He needs to land a big shot to knock you out, and he couldn't do it. Perez stayed away from him, picked him apart with strikes. The first round was a little rocky, though, for Perez. I thought he actually got stunned a little bit. And everything Rivera throws, he throws to decimate you. But that's also to his detriment at times. It leaves him open for counters, and Perez kind of figured that out in the second round and in the third, and I thought he won both rounds. I thought he won 2 rounds to 1. One judge had it like 30-26. I have no idea what fight he watched. But right guy won either way. In the next fight, Jake Ellenberger probably saved his UFC career. First round knockout of Matt Brown. Everybody knows how tough Matt Brown is. He gets a lot of credit. I actually think this might have been 2 of the more overrated fighters in the UFC going against each other. Matt Brown has double-digit losses on his career, on his record, and he has never really beaten a great fighter. He's beaten some decent guys, and he has exciting fights, but he hasn't really beaten a great fighter. And here he is fighting against Ellenberger, who I think has gotten a lot of credit, a lot of push. He's going to talk about his wrestling, his titanic right hand, but I always see him come up short. He's lost 2 fights in a row, and I believe 5 of his last 6. So comes into this one. If he lost, he may very well have been released, but instead he knocks out Matt Brown in the first round. Wasn't even close to complete wipeout. Brown's not going anywhere. He just recently signed like a 5 or 8 fight deal, so he's not going anywhere, and he's still a draw because people love him, love his fighting style. But on this evening, wasn't enough. He didn't get it done. Gets knocked out in the first round. In the co-main event, as I mentioned in the opening, Carolina Kowalkiewicz. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. Mike Goldberg said it like 47 different ways, but I'm going to go with Kowalkiewicz until she tells me different. So that may not happen. She defeats Rose Thug Namajunas. And one judge gave Namajunas the fight, and I didn't get that. I definitely think Namajunas won the first round, but the 2 takedowns, more significant strikes. Third round, Namajunas was hurt on maybe 1 or 2 occasions by the knees that Kowalkiewicz was throwing. She outstruck her that round, and in the third round, I thought Kowalkiewicz won as well. It wasn't quite as demonstrative or as clear as it was in that second round, but definitely I thought she did enough to win 2 rounds to 1. Ended up getting a split decision and probably a shot at Joanna Jędrzejczyk. 2 Polish women fighting there for the UFC women's strawweight title. So that's going to, if only that fight could actually take place in Poland or in Chicago, where there's also a very large Polish contingent or Polish population, that would be huge. But I don't think that that's on tap. I think they usually only have 1 UFC event in Chicago per year, and that was just UFC on Fox 20 or 21, whichever one it was, where Holly Holm lost to Shevchenko. So probably is not going to happen, and it's probably not going to Poland either. So we'll see what happens. But I thought Namajunas, her power isn't really significant in the striking. She tried to move a bit because I think she knew about Kowalkiewicz's stand-up skills and how that could be an issue for her. So she tried to move. She tried to use some leg kicks, go for some takedowns when it was at opportune times. But she really wasn't able to get or grab any momentum or get a rhythm after that first round. And I think once she got hurt, just actually making it through that was a bit of a victory for her because those knees were hard. And Kowalkiewicz pulls out the win. We'll see what happens with her and Jędrzejczyk. That might be the battle of women with the longest names in the UFC, period. So that in itself may make that one even more interesting. But it's going to be a good fight anyway. I don't know if Kowalkiewicz was quite quick enough to handle Jędrzejczyk on the feet. Because she has some piston-like jabs and nasty kicks. And I don't know. Kowalkiewicz doesn't seem I don't know if she's up to that. In the main event, as we talked about, Tyron Woodley. I actually predicted Tyron Woodley would get the upset victory. I picked him by decision, and I normally wouldn't even include the Bleacher Report preview link in, but I'm going to do it just so I can show and prove to you guys, yes, I did pick Tyron Woodley to win this fight. As I admitted, I did not predict him to win by knockout. I thought he would use his movement and outstrike Lawler because I knew he was much quicker than Lawler, more explosive, and I felt that would give Robbie an issue because Robbie hasn't really fought anybody with Woodley's level of athleticism. And I think Lawler was aware of that, to be honest, and I think he just thought he was going to gut it out. It didn't happen. It really the fight is hard to analyze a fight that goes just over 3 minutes. But that's pretty much just over 2 minutes. Woodley came in, caught him with a big right hand, clean as day. Lawler drops. Woodley just starts landing 5 or 6 unanswered shots, and Dan Miragliotta had to step in and stop this fight. It's so crazy what's going on in the UFC right now. This is 7 champions who have lost their belt in 2016, and we're talking about, I believe, 6 since April. So we saw Verdum lose to Miocic. We saw Dillashaw lose his title to Cruz. We saw we saw Holm lose her title to Tate. We saw Tate lose her title to Nunez. We saw Rockhold lose his title to Bisping. We saw Dos Anjos lose his title to Eddie Alvarez. I'm missing one. Oh, and then obviously now we just saw Lawler lose his to Woodley. So it's almost like, there was a discussion is it bad to see so many titles changing hands? And I think it is. It makes it, with everything that's going on with the PD usage, and now you got champions who can't sustain. It's really hard for the UFC to sustain a star right now that is above and beyond the rest. And, stars are what sells professional sports organizations. And right now it's hard to find who the transcendent star is. And I guess this kind of started when Ronda lost back in November of 2015. Things just got shaky. Then Conor loses. Even though he didn't lose his title, he lost. So who is the person? And John Jones is supposed to be the guy, but he has some issues. The only unscathed person that seems to be flowing through here is Demetrius Johnson. In terms of, we're talking about people who are truly considered elite. Your J-Chick is there too, but it's getting shaky. Cormier is winning almost in relative anonymity because he doesn't get the respect he deserves. So the UFC needs some stars that they can get behind and point to their championship and say, hey, this person is a long time or long reigning champion. And right about now, that's really been difficult to secure. That's all I got for you on this side. If you didn't get an opportunity, I had 2 monitors. I had all kinds of stuff going tonight. There's going to be a recap for Leo Santa Cruz against Carl Frampton, which was a great boxing match in itself. So take a look at that. But in the meantime, I appreciate you watching. God bless. Peace.